Good afternoon everybody, and welcome to a much earlier Cyclone video update from Oz Cyclone Chasers. Today, March the 8th, 2014, and just letting you know that the team is now in planning mode. We probably have been in planning mode since last night, but we are now officially in planning mode for our next chase on the Queensland coastline. And just to let you know, we are not chasing the one on the peninsula. We are chasing the one on the east coast, or the one that's expected to be on the east coast. Alright, let's have a look at some trending in the model guidance, and firstly let's have a look at some trending in the Bureau of Meteorology first, and then we'll talk about whether that's supported or not in model guidance. You might be surprised. Issued at 11:30 this morning, Tropical Low 1 is expected to become Tropical Cyclone by 10 AM tomorrow morning, or early tomorrow morning, and expected to, by the Bureau, possibly reach even Category 2 levels. And we can see here that the system is expected to adopt a general southeastward track, but the error margin gets quite large once we get into Monday morning as to whether it'll track down through the Gulf, whether it'll track east across the Cape and back off the northeast Queensland coastline, or whether it'll just track south along the peninsula and dump a fair bit of rain in the area. So there is a very large range of track forecasts here, and we can't really shed light on which one will come through because the model guidance is probably equally split between all three options. And we'll talk about model guidance shortly, but firstly I just want to show you the overview of the Bureau's track. And the latest forecast for the other low, the one that we're all going to be chasing, is expected to become a tropical cyclone early tomorrow morning as well, and unlikely to form into anything more significant than a Cat 2 at this point in time. Likely to hit between Townsville and Mackay, and model guidance is favouring probably just to the east of Bowen at the moment, towards the Proserpine, Airlie Beach, Hideaway Bay. They're the ones that copped Gillian about a month ago, so it could be deja vu for these guys. Now the system is tracking in a westerly direction. It's expected to stall and push basically almost directly due south. Now if it pushes a little bit more to the west and then south, we could be looking at the Townsville to Bowen coastline. If it pushes directly south from here, we could be looking at a crossing probably around the Mackay area rather than the Townsville to Bowen area. But look, there is still a fairly wide-ranging area of tracks, and so that's why the watch is extending northwards to Cardwell, southwards to St. Lawrence, and we have quite a large error margin in that grey area at the moment. Although it has come back to the pack a little bit, it is still fairly large, considering the lead time here is 48 hours to landfall. It is still important to note that there is just that couple of models, or there are just those couple of models that don't show landfall at all. So it would be remiss of us not to mention that there is still a very low percentage chance that it won't make landfall. But most of the guidance now makes landfall somewhere in the Townsville to Mackay coastline. Obviously the warning area extends south to St. Lawrence because the bulk of the gales will be to the south of the system, so that's no surprise there that the warning is extending a long way further to the south. And also there is just that slight chance that the system may adopt a track even further to the east and south, and thereby putting that Mackay to Serena coastline in direct threat of the path of the system. But at this point in time, look, the model clearly favours a Townsville to Mackay crossing, and most likely in the Bowen Whitsundays region. So, looking firstly at the GFS ensemble and whether that track forecast from the Bureau is widely supported by the model guidance, we can see that overall tracking in a south-southwest direction in the next 24 hours. That's till 4 AM tomorrow. So this is from the 4 AM model guidance. By 4 PM tomorrow, some of the early model members make landfall around the Townsville area, but some of the later model members keep the system well and truly offshore still at 4 PM tomorrow. The ones that hit the Bowen Whitsundays area keep this system offshore tomorrow afternoon. So not expecting a landfall tomorrow afternoon or tomorrow evening, unless the system makes a more northerly landfall in the Townsville to Ingham region. Otherwise, we're expecting a crossing either Sunday night or Monday morning. By 4 AM Monday, the GFS model has the system crossing anywhere from about Rolling Stone all the way through to the Whitsundays coastline, with the possibility still at Monday morning that the system could be lying just offshore to the east or to the northeast of the Whitsundays coastline. And as we've been saying, by Monday afternoon, look, the system should have made landfall by Monday afternoon. However, there are some models, very, very few of them, that keep the system offshore and those that do keep it offshore then don't make landfall at all. By Tuesday morning, the system remains stationary either offshore or has now pushed well and truly inland. So we can see there that by Tuesday morning we've got a fair amount of disagreement in the model guidance from the GFS model members. The Canadian CMC model at the 2-day mark, most of its members have now come on board with a coastal crossing anywhere from Cairns to Mackay or Cairns to the Airlie Beach region. So that has also come on board now in the bulk of the system actually making landfall. The deterministic CMC model continues to keep the system offshore, but most of the ensemble members have now made landfall of the system at the 2-day mark, which is, for this particular model run, which was run 10 PM last night, we're looking at a 10 PM Sunday crossing. That may be a little optimistic. It may be more early Monday. And then by Monday morning, 10 AM, we see well and truly most of the guidance keeps puts the system onshore. There are those 3 or 4 members that don't, including the one that you see on your weather maps that didn't put the system onshore. But overall, the system gets onshore and then eventually comes back offshore. The UK Met at 24 hours suggests the system will adopt a southwest and then southerly track at the 24-hour mark. At 48 hours, the system continues to adopt a southerly track. So this is a little bit more, a little slower in terms of its movement and remains offshore even out to Sunday night. By Monday morning, the system starts to approach the coastline anywhere from Townsville to about Mackay. But there is still a lot of model disagreement in the UK Met, with a lot of ensemble members keeping the system well and truly offshore around 150 degrees east and then starting to push it southeastwards or eastwards even. By Monday night, we start to see the models that do put the system onshore have done so or are very, very close to doing so, but we also see that wide amount of disagreement here in the UK Met model at day 3. So this is now by Monday night. So looking at the European model now, when we see the system adopts a westerly or west-northwesterly track followed by a south-southwesterly track, it's a very, very sharp turn to the south or south-southwest, and then it basically adopts that track for the entire life cycle up until landfall. So you can see that the deterministic, which is shown by the red line, shows a landfall right over the top of Townsville. The ensemble mean, though, shows a landfall or a touching land around the Bowen area or just to the north of Bowen. So this is by tomorrow morning at 10 AM. We see the system generally tracking in a southerly direction or south-southwesterly direction. Some of the model members, even by Sunday morning, by Monday, I'm getting my days mixed up here. By Sunday morning, some of the model members actually have it already hitting land around Cardwell, believe it or not. But most of the model guidance, particularly about 80 or 90% of it, keeps the system offshore. By Sunday night, we see that the model guidance that pushed the system up around Cardwell, which we wouldn't expect to happen, but you can't rule it out, has pushed it well and truly onshore. But by Sunday night, we're actually starting to see most of the model guidance landfalling the system. If it's going to landfall sort of west and north of Bowen, most of the guidance is now landfalling it on Sunday night. There are the model members that push it a little bit further to the east that still haven't made landfall there by Sunday night. And then by Monday morning, we see quite a variance in the model guidance. Some of it pushing into the inland regions, most of it keeping it, some of it keeping it offshore, some of it grazing the coastline. So Monday morning we have too high variance to have too much confidence in the track forecast at that point, but overall up until Sunday night the system is either on or very, very close to the coast, so you're still going to be experiencing the category 1 effects of such systems, of such a system. Okay, taking our attention to the Gulf system at 24 hours time, Sunday, this is now, we're looking at Saturday night. This now we're going to be looking at Sunday morning, so just watching the track forecast here. Sunday morning, we could already have a landfall by Sunday morning, believe it or not. It's unlikely, but it is possible if the system catches a ride on some fairly strong monsoonal westerlies and doesn't have much height. It may actually make landfall, but overall, most guidance keeps it still offshore Sunday morning. As we head to Sunday night, the system is expected to overall have hit the coast on the West Peninsula. There are still some guidance, some model members keeping it well offshore. Most of them have hit the coast. Some of them have even started to put the system out over the far northwestern Coral Sea. Now, as we head to Monday morning, we see that the system is likely to be lying anywhere from in the eastern Gulf of Carpentaria through to the northwestern Coral Sea. And so we have a very large degree of variance there in the model guidance. And as we head to day 3, so this is by Monday night now, we've seen overall we're expecting it to be over land or just over water on the western Coral Sea. Now if this track verifies, you can expect once again heavy rain. Even though you may have missed out on the rain from the Coral Sea low, you would expect heavy rain to be developing from this low here as it tracks over the peninsula. That's the Europeans' take. So the CMC model's take on this is pretty similar overall, except at 48 hours time overall we start to see a trend, most of the guidance pushing it offshore in the Coral Sea, and at 72 hours time we see the track pushing back to the south, back towards the North Queensland coast overall. And so once again the same deal as the European. In the CMC we're seeing very good track guidance that the system will track in a southeast direction and be likely lying over the East Peninsula or the West Coral Sea. So once again the areas that might have missed out from rainfall from the Coral Sea one will be receiving rainfall again from this one, although there might be a break in between this one and the new one coming through, but it won't be more than about a day or two. So by Monday, Tuesday you should be seeing some heavy rain out of this one as well. If we check out the GFS, so GFS at day 1, so far the GFS has been quite strange in its movement. So some of the model guidance has it pushing back out here towards the territory, some of it out here in the Coral Sea. So the GFS is quite divided in movement for this system. But as we head to 48 hours, you can see that overall the guidance has it hitting the coast early on Monday morning or late on Sunday night. As we head to day 3, we see that overall, once again, even in the GFS now, we see most of the guidance and the members are putting this over the Cape and some of it even into the Western Coral Sea. There is still that off chance that the system might still lie in the eastern Gulf of Carpentaria. If that happens and the system still hasn't made landfall, then we could be seeing a Category 2, possibly even a stronger system. But at this point in time we expect it to hit land before it can attain too much in terms of strength. So as we head to day 3.5, so we're now looking at the 4 p.m. period on the Tuesday, so 4 p.m. Tuesday. We're seeing most of the guidance now has this system lying just off the North Queensland coastline out here. And as we head to Tuesday night, so as we head to Tuesday night into Wednesday, we'll be able to see that the system, you can see here now whether it continues tracking southeast or whether it tracks back south towards the coast, not sure of. And you can also see just the chance here of the system tracking back towards the NT. So there's a fair bit of variation there in the future forecast for this, and it will make a hell of a lot of difference in terms of how much rain will fall on northeast Queensland depending on which track it takes. So I've shown you the latest guidance from the more reputable global models. Let's have a look at the regional model though, the Access R model from the Bureau of Meteorology. We can see that 5 a.m. tomorrow the tropical cyclone or tropical low in the Gulf gets very close to the Western Cape. We can see this one gradually deepening in the Coral Sea, and we're seeing that already. As we get to 5 p.m. though, you can notice that the Coral Sea one over that last 12 hours sort of stalls just off the coast here. It doesn't really move much, pushes probably more in a southerly direction. You can also see that by late tomorrow the bomb model is expecting the system to hit the West Peninsula coastline. As we head 12 hours further into Monday morning, we see that the system here pushes in a southerly direction. We see the Gulf system has already hit the coast. As we head to 5 p.m. Monday, once again the Coral Sea system very slow moving, very heavy rainfall in parts of the exposed coast in the central Queensland or northern parts of the central Queensland coastline, and possibly even the Herbert Lower Burdekin if it tracks a little bit further to the west. And as we head to Thursday, we see that the system here lies over the peninsula, hasn't quite made it back over water, and we see the Coral Sea cyclone or low likely to lie very close to the coast, and then making landfall just north of Bowen, between Bowen and Ayr, on the Access regional model, and we can see that happens on Tuesday morning. So this model is particularly slow at drifting this system anywhere in particular at all, but its eventual landfall is around Bowen. So the FIM9 model, a experimental model, its track forecast southwest or south-southwest, then stalls off the coast of about Ingham and pushes in a south-southeast direction, and doesn't actually make landfall. It just keeps it very, very close to the central Queensland coast, and then pushes it back to the north and forms it into a big trophy low feature out here in the Western Coral Sea in response to the Gulf of Carpentaria low, which pushes southeast and crosses into the western Coral Sea. The NavGem model, very similar to day 3, even though the NavGem model is not a very accurate model. It shows a southerly to south-southwest track, and then at day 3 the system pushes eastwards but forms into a fairly strong trophy type low feature here, in response to the tropical low from the Gulf pushing east and getting off the North Queensland coastline. These systems end up forming one broad low pressure system. So when does the rain start? Well, at 1 PM we've seen very little rain on the Queensland coast, but we have seen a tightening up of the Willis Island low, and we're also seeing a tightening up of the Gulf of Carpentaria low. Now, as we head towards 10 PM tonight, the rain has started along the coast, anywhere from Cairns all the way to Mackay, and the rain is also starting along the West Peninsula coastline as well. As we head to 4 AM tomorrow, we see some of that really heavy rain pushing on shore now between Cairns and Mackay. We see the system starting its stall here off the coast of Cairns, and we see this tropical low or tropical cyclone starting to approach the coast on Sunday at 10 AM. That system out here in the northwest peninsula actually gets very close to landfall, and the system here over the Western Coral Sea continues tightening up, possibly into a minimal tropical cyclone by Sunday morning. And then as we head to Sunday afternoon, we see that the system here pushing a lot of very heavy rain. The rain starts to ease off over the Cairns to Cardwell area, but it really starts to intensify in the Townsville to Bowen area, with Mackay lying on the feeder band here. And as we see in the far northern Cape York Peninsula, some of that really heavy rain getting in there as well, and also through the inland parts of the far northern peninsula. Then as we head to Sunday night, we see that the tropical low or tropical cyclone, according to the Euro model, is making landfall right around Townsville. Therefore the very, very heavy rain will be anywhere from about Rolling Stone through to Serena, but possibly also getting some moderate rainfall as far south as maybe Rocky, and possibly even Gladstone could be seeing some showers out of this. You can see here a very nice northeasterly feeder band coming straight into the coast here around Mackay, and then spinning through or rotating through into the centre of the low or the cyclone. So anywhere south of that cyclone that gets under this feeder band is going to see some pretty decent rainfall. We're talking 100-200 mils over 24 hours is not going to be unusual, possibly even heavier falls depending on how strong this cyclone gets. Then as we head to Monday morning, this is the point where we'll leave this animation, because after that we have an interaction between these two systems, and that interaction is all important in any future rainfall. But even up to Monday morning, we're seeing some extreme rainfall anywhere from Townsville southwards, particularly in the area from about Ayr through to Serena, possibly even St. Lawrence on the Monday morning. So that's where we'll leave it, and we also see, this northern one starting to push into the Western Coral Sea near Princess Charlotte. So we can see the system is pushing in a westerly or west-southwest or even southwest direction at the moment out here around Willis Island. We can see Willis Island is now located to the east or just east-northeast of the system centre. They're getting northeasterly winds in the latest updates from the observations there. We can see that to the west or southwestern quadrant we're getting 25 to 30 knot southerlies. On the southern quadrants we're getting 25 to 30 knot southeasterlies. We're not far off, folks. It's not too far off in terms of being named according to the guidelines that we have that need to be fulfilled. I mean, we're getting 20 knots on its northeastern quadrant, and you're getting 30 knots on its southeastern quadrant, so it's probably only 12 to 18 hours away from a name. the big news is we can see that it's finally starting to tighten up. We've been waiting for this to happen for 3 days and it hasn't happened, and finally it's just starting to show signs that it will happen now. And over the NT, we can see that the NT low is going quite well out here in the northern Gulf of Carpentaria as well. Got a very, very beefy western side to it in terms of its convection, and also the northwest, which is outside of radar coverage, but it certainly does look pretty impressive in terms of the amount of convection around it. There is a lot of easterly shear though, so what's happening at a lot of the time is this thunderstorm activity is growing and then getting whisked away out to the west in that direction. So because of that, that's a terrible arrow by the way, but because of that, we're seeing that even though it's really trying hard to get itself going, there is easterly wind shear which is pushing a lot of the convection to the west. So that's why it has that beefy western side that we just saw on radar. By the way, the radar and satellite imagery today is thanks to Weather Zone. They're a great graphics outlet. Place for you to get some awesome graphics for weather. So weatherzone.com.au, check them out. If we look at the Queensland one, it looked like a dog's breakfast this morning. It looked like one big trophy mess, but it is starting to show signs of really tightening up now in the last sort of 6 hours or so, or the last couple of frames on this satellite. We can start to see the circulation out here to the east of Cairns. Now, if that circulation pushes directly south from there, we're going to see a track pretty well where the bombs suggest it's going to be, around Hamilton Island. Although, as I've shown you so far, most of the model guidance that we have this morning shows a track more in the Townsville to Bowen area as opposed to further south. So it'll be interesting to see whether the model guidance gets it right or whether the Bureau gets it right with their track slightly further to the east. And remembering again that the Bureau has placed a very, very large error margin to the south as well, incorporating all the way down to St. Lawrence, even past St. Lawrence, closer to Rocky in fact was the error margin. So quite a large error margin and not extremely well supported by model guidance at this point in time. So the Bureau must be seeing something that we're not, but at this point in time the model guidance is suggesting Townsville to Bowen landfall, and possibly as far as sort of the Whitsundays, but nothing so far that we've seen suggesting too much south of that. So time will tell, and I'm sure we'll have another update tomorrow while we're on the road. Now, tomorrow's update is going to be short because we're on the road, and we've got to keep it short on the road because I've got a lot more pressing issues to be doing while chasing. So I will definitely update you, but just a little warning, it'll be an abbreviated version. And the one of the latest visible imageries we have here of the system is located just to that northeast of all that cloud. So that cloud is just being sheared away slightly to the southwest. Another terrible arrow. I've got to get this program to draw me arrows. And so because of that, we're going to see certainly a more rapid development now than we were going to see 24 hours ago, because it has at least tightened up. It's less trophy, but it's still being sheared away to the southwest. But the good thing also is that it's got a massive exhaust system here, out here to the south, and particularly in this region here, it's expelling a lot of the tops of those thunderstorms. So even though it's getting sheared, it's able to produce thunderstorms just as quickly as they're getting sheared away. So that's why it's not all bad for this system. So we're not expecting rapid intensification like some of the modelling was suggesting could be an issue, but we are suggesting some intensification, and therefore that should get it to Cat 1. So as we head to Sunday, we're going to see some very heavy rain starting to hit the coast. Moderate to heavy falls from Cairns all the way south to St. Lawrence, but some really heavy rain from around about Townsville south to the Whitsunday, or past the Whitsundays to Mackay, with extreme rain possible around the Bowen to Whitsundays area, depending on obviously the exact track. Also some moderate to heavy falls developing on the Northern Cape. Then on Monday, we see the variation in track forecasts. Some of them suggest that this low will push offshore around Princess Charlotte Bay. Some of them suggest the low could remain in the eastern Gulf of Carpentaria. But I guess the key here is that we're still going to see moderate to heavy falls from around about Townsville on the east coast down to around Rocky on the east coast, with some heavy falls in the Mackay or Serena to Bowen area, and then some extreme rainfall around the Whitsundays in this particular setup, according to most of the guidance there. Then by Tuesday, modelling gets quite confusing because some of the models continue pushing the tropical low here on the eastern Gulf of Carpentaria. So we see one bunch of models suggesting very heavy rain there, while we see another bunch of models suggesting a return to moderate to heavy falls from Cairns south to Rocky or St. Lawrence. And once again, this is because we have one low up here and one low out here, and they form into one big trophy mess over here and create an increase in the flow again over most of northern and the northern half of central Queensland as well. So that could see some big rainfalls again on the Tuesday. And that is further reflected on Wednesday, where we see the big variance in the guidance. Some of it has the Gulf of Carpentaria cyclone now hitting the southern Gulf, while the ones that had the Gulf of Carpentaria cyclone getting offshore now have quite large spreads in rainfall potential. But we see a real maximum there between Cairns and probably around Bowen of some possible very, very heavy rainfall on the Wednesday as well. So folks, it gets very, very confusing after Monday. So at this stage on Sunday, let's expect to see the onset of that moderate to heavy rain. Some of that moderate to heavy rain will set in overnight tonight as well, so don't be surprised if you start to hear some of that rain on your roof tonight. Alright folks, thanks very much for watching today, and we will talk again sometime tomorrow. I can't tell you what time tomorrow. It will depend on where we're chasing and what we're doing and where we have coverage. Thanks for watching. We'll talk tomorrow. Bye.